Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Duval, and I'm a career and wellbeing counselor at NVCC on the Fredericton campus. And today we're going to be going through the presentation, Conquering the Interview Process, Keys to Success. And so what we're going to be doing is pretending that we are a job applicant all ready to apply for, maybe our first job, and we're really excited about it. So we're going to be starting from, how to understand job ads, then working our way through, how to prepare a resume and cover letter, and then what to do during an interview, how to prepare for an interview, and kind of the whole process. So we will jump right into it. You may notice that the presentation is a bit content heavy, and the reason for this is because I want you to be able to actually go back after the presentation and use this as a resource. So there will be a copy of this presentation in the toolkit that we'll be providing to students. So feel free to, again, kind of listen throughout the next 45 minutes to an hour, and then be able to go back and actually use this as a resource. So we will jump right in. So we're going to move down to understanding job ads. All right. So the first bullet says, it's very important to really try to understand the role. So as you begin your job search and you click on a job ad that you think is, sounds interesting to you, really make sure to read through the responsibilities, read through the job ad very carefully to make sure you have the best understanding as possible. Don't be discouraged if you can't do everything listed in the job ad. This can be, really easy to get discouraged by if you're looking through the responsibilities or the qualifications and you notice that you don't have all of them. But this, it's kind of impossible for, someone to have every experience with everything listed in the job ad. So it's really important to just make sure that you focus on what you do have and really demonstrate that in your resume, which we'll talk about a little further on. So it's not about having direct experience on each part of the job, but it's about making sure you give evidence of your ability and experience. So as I just mentioned, it's really important to focus on looking at the job ad and then tailoring your resume to make sure you're demonstrating the skills that you do have that relate to the job ad. Transferable skills are a huge thing. Perhaps you're entering, a brand new industry. Maybe you're entering IT for the first time, and your past experience is in customer service. You still have past experience, and that customer service, those skills that you've gained, transfer into your new career as an IT professional. So it's really important to remember that what you do bring to the table and demonstrating that on your resume. Make sure you analyze the words in the job ad to make sure that you, again, have a good understanding. And don't be put off by the job title. This is a huge one. Sometimes people will look at the title of a job and say, oh, I don't have that experience, but that's why it's so important to actually click on it, go in and look to make sure that you really understand the role before just basing it off what the job title is. Because again, every employer may call the same job a different title. So it's important to really, again, just go in and try to understand it by reading the responsibilities section. Something that I also want to mention with regards to the job ad is sometimes you'll see that kind of more entry-level positions still list they want 1 to 2 years of experience, or 5 years of experience, or whatever it may be. Don't be put off by this. I would still encourage you to apply even if you don't have that 2 years of experience. And the reason I say this is because you never know how many applicants they're getting. Perhaps they're having a hard time filling that role. And if you don't at least put your resume in, then there is no chance. But if you put it in, then there always is a chance. So don't be put off by that. I'd encourage you to still apply. One of the first jobs I got post-school was actually a job that had listed they wanted 2 years of experience, and I only had my education. So again, you never know what the opportunity could be. So I'd still encourage you to apply. So we are going to move down to the next one. So this has to do with understanding some words in the job ad. I'm just going to take a sip of water. All right, so you may notice in the job ad that it says competitive salary, and this can mean, different things. Sometimes they'll actually list the salary, but other times they may just put, it's competitive. If you're wondering what is a competitive salary mean, you can actually go online and just kind of research, what is the kind of average wage that a beginner in IT gets, or a beginner in admin professional, and go from there to kind of understand what to be expecting. You may see core competency listed in the job ad, and what that means are those are really the core skills that the employer is looking for. So they may have listed, that they want someone with effective communication, customer service skills. So it's really important to, again, make sure that your resume is demonstrating those skills. You may see words like dynamic and proactive. So trying again to demonstrate those skills within your resume is important. You may see that it lists a fast-paced and challenging role. This may mean that the environment that you'd be working in is fast-paced and you may need to be flexible, which is the next bullet. You may see self-starter and fast learner. So again, really just trying to focus on demonstrating those in your resume is very important. And another word you may see are stakeholders. And I've had folks come and say, what is a stakeholder? So it's absolutely okay to ask that question. You can have either internal or external stakeholders or both. Your internal stakeholders are those people within the organization that you serve, and the external stakeholders are those outside of the organization that you serve. So for instance, it could be your clients or customers, or those that kind of have a stake in your work that are from outside the organization. So those are just some words that are often used in job ads. So we are going to move on to the next kind of section. So now you've found a job that you're really interested in applying for. You fully understand the job ad, and now you're ready to actually prepare your resume. So I'm going to go through a few different things with regards to resumes, some do's and don'ts and things to keep in mind. So again, we'll just kind of go through it bullet by bullet, and I'll give kind of a brief overview of each part. All right, so resume language. You really want to make sure you use specific rather than general language. And this really goes back to making sure you're demonstrating your experience on your resume. Recruiters are, they're scanning quickly. So it's really important to make sure that you're demonstrating in a concise way your experience and what you've done so you can best kind of tell your story. The next part is you want to use active rather than passive language. Written to express and not impress. This is very important. Sometimes I remember when I used to work in human resources prior to coming into this role, and sometimes I'd be going through resumes and there'd be these big kind of fancy flowery words, and it would kind of take away from the experience that the person had in itself. So it's just important to, again, not try to write with big fancy words to impress, but just be concise. Again, you want to avoid that flowery language and be more articulate. Try to use, fact-based, so you want to quantify and qualify, and then written for people who scan quickly, which I already mentioned. So again, you want to be as concise as possible and avoid sort of that flowery language and really try to be fact-based. All right, so we're going to go through a few top resume mistakes. So the first one would be spelling and grammar errors. So you really want to make sure that you have someone proofread your resume, have them look over it, because sometimes we can go through our own work and miss little mistakes. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you have someone else go through it. Because I remember in the past, I was hiring for a communications role, and I can't even tell you how many resumes I had come in that had spelling and grammar errors and formatting issues. And it already showed me that if they couldn't kind of prepare their resume correctly, then how would they do that in a role that required them to be, very detail oriented? So again, it's your first impression, and you really want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. The next part would be missing information. So you want to make sure you avoid that. Always make sure you have your email or phone on your resume, and make sure it's updated. So if you change your phone number, if you get a new email, always adjust that on your resume. You don't want to use passive language, but instead use action words. And we'll go through a few of those in a few minutes. One of the other mistakes is if it's not well organized, concise, or easy to read. Again, you need to make sure that it's easy to read, that it's, presented in a good format. And if you have questions about, what should my resume look like, there's some great sites that provide different resume templates that kind of help you organize them. And even Microsoft Word has some great templates as well. And you want to make sure that your resume isn't too long. So we do recommend, 1 to 2 pages. Sometimes it does have to be a bit longer than that. As you gain experience in your career, it may be a bit longer, but really trying to, not make it 10 pages or anything like that, because again, recruiters are scanning quickly. All right. So we're going to go on to a few don'ts and do's of resume writing. Just taking a quick sip of water. All right, so you want to make sure that you don't use personal pronouns. So you don't want to list on your resume, I did this or I did that, but instead you just want to list it out in a bullet point. So maybe you provided good customer service, not I provided good customer service. The next one, don't use abbreviations because you never know. Someone may not know what that abbreviation means. So it's important to actually write it out. So if you were doing your education at New Brunswick Community College, write out New Brunswick Community College instead of NBCC, because perhaps an employer may not know what NBCC is. Again, you want to make sure you don't use a narrative style, so you're not writing paragraphs on your resume. Again, it's bullet point and using action words. Don't use number or letter categories, and try to avoid any sort of slang on your resume. Make sure you're using full words. It kind of depends on where you are, but here in Canada, it's not necessary to put your age or sex on your resume, so you can avoid doing that. You also don't have to list references on your resume. It's absolutely okay to put at the bottom of your resume references available upon request, and that's because an employer needs permission to even reach out to your references either way. So when they get to that point in the process, they'll actually just ask you for references. So again, you don't need to list them out. It just kind of takes up more space. And you definitely want to put dates on your resume, but try not to start each line with a date, but instead have them neatly on one side of the page. So you do want to make sure that you're consistent in your format and content on your resume. That's very important. So making sure that you're using, the same font size and different, if you bold it in one area, you want to bold it in the same area, further down your resume. Make sure it's easy to read and follow, balancing white spaces. So you don't want too much white space. You want to make sure it's balanced. Use consistent spacing, underlining, italics, bold, and capitalization for emphasis. It's very important to make sure you list headings such as work experience, education, things like that. And within your headings, list information in reverse chronological order. So you want to do the most recent. So if your most recent education is NBCC, you want to put that first under your education, and then you can kind of work your way down. You want to avoid any sort of information gap, such as missing a summer. Again, sometimes this isn't possible, but your resume is really telling a story. So you want the employer to really be able to clearly see what you've been up to over the last, however long you've been kind of in the world of work. Be sure that your formatting translates properly if converted to a PDF. This is also very important. And the reason I say that is because in the past, I've had folks that they had their resume in Microsoft Word, converted it to PDF, and then I've opened it when I was screening resumes, and I could tell right off the bat that they, didn't check it because the formatting was all over the place, and it can just really distract from, your resume, and it can make it so it's not well organized, and, so it's really important to make sure you convert it to PDF and then you check it to make sure all the formatting translates well. And one other thing I want to mention here with regards to resumes that is not necessarily listed, but say you are, a new grad or soon to be new grad entering a new industry, and you're thinking, okay, I don't have a lot of work experience in this area. How should I organize my resume? One thing I always recommend is actually putting your education as one of the first sections on your resume. And the reason for that is that it allows the employer to say, okay, so this person is in school for this, this field, and they're entering this new field. And then they can see underneath that, yeah, sure, they're a new grad. Maybe they don't have experience in it, but at least it kind of tells the story, and it easily allows the recruiter to know, okay, this is where they're headed. This is what they've been doing over the last couple of years, rather than if you put your experience first. And if your work experience, has nothing to do with it, and then way down the page is your education, it just makes it a little bit harder to kind of navigate, again, the story of your resume. So really trying to focus, again, just on your education first so that they can see what you've been up to. So again, just a pointer there that may be helpful. So I'm not going to go through each section of the resume here, or each section of the action verbs. What this is these are examples that you can use on your resume to illustrate different words. So for instance, leadership, instead of just putting that you demonstrated leadership or provided leadership. You could put that you achieved, you assigned, you attained, and these are just some different words that you can use. And then it lists under communication, research, technical, teaching, quantitative. So feel free to go back again and use this as a reference. All right, so we're going to move into cover letters. All right. So again, we'll just kind of go through what process we're at. You found a job you're really interested in, you understand the job ad, you tailored your resume, made sure you had it all prepared, and now it's time to write your cover letter. So your cover letter is a writing sample and a part of the screening process. It's a good way to create a response producing or a good way to produce a cover letter is to highlight your skills or experiences that are most applicable to the job or industry and to tailor the letter to the specific organization you are applying to. Again, this is huge. You don't want to just have the same resume and cover letter that you hand out to every employer. Every time you go to apply to a job, you want to make sure that you're tailoring it to the specific job and the specific employer that you're applying to. You might say, oh, Rebecca, that's going to take so long. I can tell you though, in the long run, it is so worth it. And it really can sometimes, be the difference of you getting an interview or not by the way you tailor your cover letter and resume. Remember that your cover letter is a marketing tool. You want to use lots of action words to keep the recruiter engaged. Again, if you're converting it to a PDF, you want to make sure that you're checking the formatting to make sure that it translates well from Microsoft Word to PDF. You want to reference skills or experiences from the job description and draw connections to your credentials. So again, your cover letter is kind of like a marketing tool, that high level piece. So you don't want to, just kind of regurgitate your resume. You want to just kind of focus on the highlights of it. And make sure your resume and cover letter are prepared with the same font and size. All right, so this is a slide that I really hope you'll be able to come back to and kind of use as a tool as you prepare your cover letter in the future. So I'll just go through this quickly to kind of show you the different sections of a cover letter. So of course you've got your, you want to put your address, kind of like, again, your information, your name and whatnot, and the date of the letter, and then any information about the employer. You might not have all of these things, that's fine. But what you do have. Then you want to write dear, you could put dear hiring manager, or if you actually have the name of the employer, the person that you're writing to, that would be great too. So in your opening paragraph, you want to clearly state why you're writing, name the position, the type of work you're exploring, and where applicable, how you heard about the person or organization. So it's kind of just like a brief introduction. And in the middle paragraph is really when you want to kind of jump into explain why you're interested in the employer and your reasons for wanting to get into this type of work. And then if you've had relevant work or school experience, that's when you can kind of highlight that there. And make sure to point out one or two key examples, again, kind of that high level on your resume. Don't reiterate, again, everything in your resume. Just make sure you emphasize skills or ability that relate specifically to that job. And be sure to remember that the reader will view your letter as an example of your writing. And this is so important. It goes back to, again, you're putting your best foot forward. You want to make sure that you're using proper grammar, proper spelling. So have someone proofread your cover letter. Friend, family member, maybe your, instructor, whoever it may be, just make sure that you have a second set of eyes on it. And also make sure that make the addressee want to read your resume and cover letter. Be brief and specific. So you really want to make this kind of intriguing, make it fun. If there is something that you're passionate about with regards to the employer that you've seen on their website, mention it here. Let them know that you're not just another applicant throwing out a resume, but that you really do want to work there and demonstrate why. And then the closing paragraph, again, you're reiterating your skills, your interest in the position, and you want to thank the reader for their time and consideration. And then end by saying that you look forward to hearing back from them to discuss the opportunity further. And then, of course, you want to do sincerely or thank you or whatever you want your sign off to be, and then your name. So again, I know I went through that rather quickly, but please feel free to come back to that and look as you're preparing your cover letter. All right, so here we are. So you have found the job that you're, really interested in. You did a cover letter, a resume, you made sure you tailored it, and now it's time to prepare for the interview. So here are some things that you want to do as you're preparing for the interview. Number one, you want to make sure you do your homework on the company. So take time to research the company. What about that company makes you want to work there? Look at their strategic plan, their website, and come prepared to really speak about the company and how you can use your skills to help move that company forward. You of course want to prepare, so if there's maybe questions that the employer has sent in advance for you to prepare for, make sure you take the time to really look at those. Identify what the organization wants and needs. That kind of goes with your doing your research. Also, you want to Google yourself. I can tell you that a lot of employers will actually look you up and find, is this someone that I want to represent our company? So make sure that you have social media etiquette, that you have, what's coming up is appropriate and professional. So really take that time to do your research. And if there's some things on there that are questionable, maybe think about taking them off. You want to interview yourself for the position, and you can even get someone to conduct a mock interview with you. If you think, well, I don't know what questions they're going to ask, you can even Google, commonly asked interview questions and then practice with those. And again, practice makes perfect. So the more you practice, the more comfortable you're going to feel on the day of the interview. And make sure to be positive. And this be positive throughout the whole process. And even if you don't get the job, because again, every interview experience is a chance to get more comfortable with interviewing, and you never know where an opportunity could go. I've been to an interview in the past where I didn't get the job, but then actually 6 months later, there was another opening and they called me up because even though I didn't get that job, they had said, I remembered that you were positive and we enjoyed meeting you. So you just never know when being positive is going to pay off and a connection you make could lead to a future opportunity. All right. So on the day of the interview, so again, you've done everything, you've made it here, and here we are the day of the interview. So you want to make sure you get ready. And this slide is really assuming that the interview's in person. A lot of interviews nowadays, especially with post-COVID world, are virtual, and we'll actually talk about that in a minute on the next slide, how to prepare for a virtual interview. So again, you want to make sure you get ready, that you understand the logistics. So Google Map, where is the company? How long is it going to take me to get there? And make sure you, leave early enough so that you have lots of time to get there in time. I'd say, anywhere between arriving 10 to 15 minutes early is kind of a good place to aim for. You want to make sure you shower and dress appropriately. Business casual is always kind of a good, safe side to err on. So dress pants, a nice shirt, that sort of thing. You want to make sure to be punctual. So again, making sure you give yourself enough time to get there in good time so that you're ready. First impressions are very important. The next one is you want to appear interested. And this one, I cannot tell you how important this is. It's so it's so funny. In the past, I've interviewed folks and sometimes people come in and you actually wonder, like, do they even want to work here? But other times you see people that come in with a passion for the employer and just, they clearly are showing that they want to be there and they want the job. And sometimes something as little as that can be the reason you do get a job. So you also want to switch off your phone, make sure that, again, limiting distractions. Get yourself into the right mindset. So you can do this sometimes even by deep breathing before the interview, listening to your favorite music or podcast while you drive to the interview, whatever it may be, just really trying to get yourself in a good mindset. Remember your strengths. So it can be so challenging to speak about our own strengths. It's a lot easier to talk about, your best friend and all the good things about them. But this goes back to practicing. Make sure you know your strengths and you're able to speak to them. Ask questions. So I always recommend that people come with a few questions that they can ask at the end of the interview. It goes back to really appearing interested and, again, showing that they're prepared. And it engages in a different type of conversation too, which is, again, another chance for them to get to know you. So gratitude, make sure at the end of the interview that you thank the interviewer for their time and that you look forward to hearing back from them. All right, so we're going to go back into um, what to do if you have a virtual interview, or say you're going to a career fair where you're going to meet different employers virtually. So the first bullet here has to do with if you were actually going to a career fair. So you'd want to make sure that you do your research beforehand and decide which employers you'd like to visit and prepare accordingly. But if you're just going to an interview with one employer, you want to make sure that you check your internet connection in advance so that you're, not scrambling at the last minute, realizing that you don't have good connection. Maybe you live outside the city or in a rural community. If so, make sure you go to a spot that has really good internet connection so that you can do everything in your power to avoid any connection issues. Have a professional setting for your background. This one's very important. I've actually in the past interviewed someone who was just kind of laying in their bed in their pajamas. So again, you want to pretend you're going in person, dress the same way, be in a professional, quiet environment. Again, dress appropriately for the video call. It's very important. Mute your microphone when you're not speaking. So perhaps the employer is going to do kind of a spiel on the job and the company. At this point, you can mute your mic and just kind of nod so that they know that you're listening, and kind of reaffirm that way. You want to, again, prepare questions in advance to ask the employer. We kind of talked about that on the last slide. Have any documents you need close by. So for example, it could be information on the employer or your resume. And the next bullet says to maintain eye contact. And this one can be a bit challenging, especially when you're looking into a camera, but try your best to really just be focusing on the interviewer as they're asking you questions, and really trying to kind of nod and let them know that you are engaged and listening. Limit distractions. Again, put your phone away, ensure you're in a quiet space. I have a puppy upstairs who's about 5 months old, and I, made sure he was put away today so that he wouldn't be barking during the presentation. So you want to do those same type of things. And make sure that you don't eat or chew gum while on camera with an employer. Same type of thing as if you were in person. So we just went through a lot of content in the last about 30 minutes. But as I mentioned, these slides are content heavy. So I want you to really go back, take a look at them. And if you have any questions about any of the content you're going through, please feel free to reach out to the Career and Wellbeing Counseling team. Our emails are going to be in the toolkit, so you can reach out by email. And just want to wish everyone best of luck as they prepare for kind of next steps in their career and moving into the world of work. We're so excited for you.